Hi, Steve Edison here for the Movements Podcast, the podcast for people who want to multiply disciples and churches everywhere. Well, today we're in sunny Southern California, talking to Jordan Giusti and Troy Cooper about how they're pursuing NoPlaceLeft in that part of the world.
I was working on staff at a big church out here in Riverside, and I just found out that I was going to lead a trip to Nepal for young adults mission trip. And it was a trekking trip through the Himalayas where we were going to go share the gospel and plant seeds there. And then they asked me, the organization we were going with was East West, and they said, hey, would you just make sure you're bringing people who are evangelizing locally and discipling locally. And I asked them, what do you mean? Who's doing that? And I don't think we'll really bring that many people if that's the qualifications, because the only way I knew how to disciple at that time and evangelize was just about in the church. Disciple was get them connected to a group or to a team. So they connected me to Kyle Pearson, and he started to just take me through 10 for 10, take me through the word, and teach me my identity in Christ as a follower and a fisher, made new, and also an ambassador for Christ. And I started to share the gospel. And the first time I ever shared the gospel, I got sort of a pressing around my neck that night, almost as if I was being choked. And it was scary. It was like a spiritual attack. And really what it did was it just gave me confirmation that I'm doing the right thing, sharing the gospel. And I felt this conviction that you could be serving on a team, leading a group, giving, attending regularly. You could even be on staff at the church. But if you're not making disciples and you're not proclaiming the kingdom, then the enemy doesn't care. So it made me more confident in stepping into sharing the gospel and teaching others, and it made me want to start groups. So one of the girls was just a catalyst there, and she ended up sharing the gospel with a girl locally who was holding onto a stone that was given to her, and was told that if she just rubs that stone, her depression will go away. And she was in her room crying, unsure of why isn't this working? And then she met a girl named Audrey, and she was able to disciple her and take her to the word and just do the same pattern. And Audrey had done one of the groups with us about the 10 for 10 groups and just going through the word. And she took Michaela through that. She took her to the Bible, and Michaela ended up accepting Jesus and getting baptized. And now that girl is making disciples. She's still gathering in her home to this day. I started a group of about 7, doing the 10 for 10 group. It was guys. It's
like the Commands of Christ rearranged, rebranded.
Yeah, Commands of Christ. We went through the Commands of Christ together, and so a few of them were just really took the tools. Not all of them, but a few of them really took them and ran and were catalysts. And one of the girls who we started a Bible study too that was separate. I had seen Kyle's wife, Amy, doing stories of hope on Instagram, just saying, hey, we go through a story of hope today in the Bible. So we just started to invite people, whether they were believers or not. And they started coming to our house every Wednesday for Bible study. And this was while I had transitioned off staff of the big church I was working at. And I was still attending, but I was starting to do the basic functions that you see in the church circle, and with that group. And one of the girls who started coming, her name's Reagan. She's one of our most faithful disciples out here, just sharing the gospel and encouraging and training up, discipling others. She actually has a Bible study going on right now that we're praying for on the CBU campus. But she just started sharing faithfully, going through the commands with others. And saw a few in her family. Her mom was activated. She was kind of asleep to the call, and now she's wanting to start groups. And her brother ended up accepting Christ and being baptized at our church. And this was by the time we started calling it church. But we've just seen the Lord move in the midst of some of the oikos of our faithful kind of people attending.
So Riverside's like an hour outside of where we live. And there's a university there. There's a lot of, I think, population has been outpriced in LA, have migrated out west or out east into Riverside. And so anyways, we go out to visit this church that's meeting in his home. And there's another, Carter Cox's cousin, Allie Jarbo, is a really faithful laborer. And I'd say that the two of them are laboring to help provide just leadership and vision and direction for this church. And Kyle was out because Kyle's coaching a number of folks out here. And he was out for a visit. And he said, Troy, that's the healthiest church I've ever seen. And so then I went out. I mean, I'd been out there a few times, but I went out, it'd probably been a few months. I went out there with one of my disciples, and we were blown away. The love for each other that they had was so evident, just practically encouraging one another, celebrating. There's a girl who had just graduated from, she's from Korea, so she just graduated from graduate school. So she doesn't have any family here. And they gave her flowers and just celebrated that her accomplishment. So it's just like, it's personal. They're all taking ownership. It's a mix of business professionals, college students. They spend an hour in the harvest before they gather, an hour in prayer before they gather, and then the 3/3 gathering. It is one of the smoothest, most comfortable 3/3 sometimes. Like once you're getting it, it can seem kind of like, hey, you doing this? It was just like a family gathering, and very spirit led. The worship was contemplative and it's just beautiful. They got into the word, and they covered it all. But no one's looking at their watches. It's and they've been doing this for almost a year now. They're out in the harvest. They're prayer walking. They're fasting. They're leading people to Christ.
The nations are here in Riverside, and honestly all throughout Southern California. So God's really been moving in the hearts of different ethnic groups.
So that night that we were out there, we had some guys who had heard about what God was doing at Rivers and came to visit and were blown away by what they saw. So just the gatherings for church here are just a living vision cast for people. They come, they see it, they're like, oh, we can do this. And they immediately wanted to ask, they were immediately asking, like, hey, we live in a different city, can you train us? And it was both like, hey, I think just seeing church in a home was big, but also just I had to be the love for each other. That's so contagious. Another thing was, having a vision to see this 18 to 22-year-old age category. I feel like as you look across the NPL network, there seems to be a little bit of a gap. And so it was just something that we had a vision for, that we began to pray and fast for, and just thinking through, there's certain mission organizations that they'll get that age group. They'll get them on a 3 to 6 month mission experience and imprint that DNA on them. And, but in order to take the next step, you become a part of that, 6 month training process. And so I was in Indianapolis visiting with some friends and family, and Malachi had an internship there. was meeting with an old high school friend, and her daughter had gone on a mission trip to plant a church, and then came back and said, I want to move there. So she moved to Illinois to help plant a church, and then COVID hit, and she had to go back home. And she was thinking about going on one of those like 6-month mission trips experiences. And I said, man, I just asked her, would you consider, being equipped to be a disciple making church planting missionary? Have you already been part of a church plant? And she said, yeah. And her mom's like, well, what do you got? And it was like, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so I began to cast, I'm like, yeah, we've got cause for a while, it just felt like we're not in a position to host anybody right now. We're all just trying to, see our first disciple, see our first baptism, see our first church. And we've gone from praying and fasting to find disciples and leaders to churches to now 3 years later, there's networks of churches all across Southern California. And so she came out her name's Katie. And this is on a Sunday. On Tuesday, she flew out from Indianapolis, and she spent a week and visited the different churches and church networks. And she said, yeah, I want to come back out. And it was the Riverside Church. I mean, there were a number of places she could have landed, but she went to Riverside, and she is seeing and experiencing all of it. She's being loved on. She's in a part of a community. She's being discipled by Allie. She's getting to train. I think she's initiated a prayer walk in a Muslim area of town.
Yeah.
So she's getting to learn, not in a classroom, but within the context of a community and a church. And she's been studying Arabic because in January she's going to deploy to the Middle East with my daughter, with Maya and a few others, to go serve for 4 to 6 months with Miriam and the team over there. Miriam Sandell. She's got a new last name. I can't remember what it is, but and so we're beginning to see some momentum, but I think it just speaks to the health of what God is doing through this. I mean, not even a year-old church, to be able to receive someone from and it not be a disruption to where they're able to just, we did a little bit of vetting, but she's, I don't know, imagine if every church across our network was able to begin to receive 1 or 2 18 to 20-year-olds and equip them, and that they could experience this, I mean, not within an official program, but just hey, get into the rhythm of the church, get in the rhythm of discipleship, and go overseas and do the same thing, because we've got that global network now. I think it's going to raise up a different kind of missionary. So anyways, but that's part of the health that we're seeing, that we're now able to receive. We have had a few families that have moved out here specifically to serve, for 3 to 5 years on a team before they go. But this was more of a shorter, 12-month stint. So yeah, that's part of the bigger picture. See, tie it back in.
Yeah.
Just part of this too, Steve, is just personally, our family, we're doing really, really well. We don't have air conditioning here. So we just leave the front door and the back door open, and the ocean breeze just blows through it. We have kids from the neighborhood, adults from the neighborhood, neighbors. We have disciples, church leaders in and out of our home every day. It reminds me of when I went to go see Jacob Vai in Haiti, and just this almost this Hall of Tyrannus, where our home and our family and others are the same out here is probably our biggest platform for ministry. To see a biblical marriage, to see a biblical family, loving people, loving one. I mean, we're obviously, and they see our mess, they see how we, deal with sin in our homes. And so, but that is happening, in the households and churches across Southern California. I did not realize what a significant need that was going to be here, and how attractive. I've literally had 2 grown professional men ask me, who are either new believers or almost believers, to disciple them, specifically because they saw our family. They're like, I see your marriage, I see your family, I want that. Can you show me what to do? And it's like, well, yeah, here we go. Let's get in the Bible together. Yeah. Relationships are so important. We've talked before about Zeal Church, how it was, started out of movement. Rivers Church, Jordan and Allie began coming to Rivers Church. It helped them get Movement Church. That's the name of the church that meets in our home, is Movement Church. Mm-hmm. They came, they were a part of it. And then out of that, they planted. Same with Zeal, same with Vital Church, is a couple families that moved out here from Atlanta. They planted some churches in their neighborhood. So we're seeing out of this community of doing that, following the 3/3 format, loving one another, that people are stepping out and starting churches, and then learning how to serve them. As now we've gone from a church to a network within the last 6 months. Zeal Church that we talked about in the last episode. Just real quick, it was there's some worship gatherings that we saw over 1,000 baptisms through Saturate OC, and Rick and I got to baptize some of them. We began discipling them, and those disciples they came to Movement, saw it, formed a church, went through the commands, seen over 27 baptisms, multiplied through way costs. It's still gathering over a year later. It's actually started another church, but we had some of the disciples, early disciples from that gathering, walk away. And it was hard. I mean, there was some concerns and questions about just character of leadership on our end that were expressed. It was really hurtful. But the Bible's got, instructions on what to do in those cases. And, we're thankful that most of those have come back, uncovered misunderstandings, whatever. But because we clung to the Word of God and to one another, and just postured ourselves through the Spirit to just forgive and love, and we moved forward in those relationships. But those are really hard seasons, and I see them as attacks. But in the midst of that, watching those leaders of that local church just step into it and lead and shepherd, and others began to come and be involved in that. So that persevering through hardships and suffering it's been more than I would have expected, and I think that's part of that next generation, at least what we're seeing out here. And praying and fasting has been a huge part of that. One stream out of, it was called Bridges. They've changed it to Neighbors and Nations. JT's church has got a 4th generation stream, and they're got a Spanish speaking stream now. There's going to be a training next month, which I'm very excited about that. Sean Lyons and Danny Cam Aspinwall started a church in West LA called Salt and Light. They have seen a church start in the South Bay area that is one part of them are going after a Japanese population. Healthy rhythm of meeting for 3/3 and going out in the harvest and prayer walking. So I think most of the churches that we've seen started out of Movement within the last 3 years have now all started a church or seen a church started. And so we've got multiple streams of 2nd and 3rd generation churches with local indigenous leadership. The discipleship is like we're going through the tools. 401 commands is the framework, but it is a life on life discipleship relationship. Like, it's not, hey, let's meet for an hour every week. It's like, we see Jesus' example, and I know this is especially tough for our Bible, brothers and sisters, which we have them and we need them. But you're inviting them into your life, and it's a lot to take on, but it's what's needed. And so that has been a part of what we're seeing here. It's not just, hey, an hour a week in a coffee shop. It's multiple days a week. And it's a lot of conversations that we're constantly referring to the Bible to. And we're beginning to see that multiply now, because some of those newer disciples are now reproducing that. And so, like, we're having to adjust our time because they need more time with their oikos and with the people that they're ministering to. Another sign of health, Steve, in Acts 13, the Holy Spirit said, set apart your best and send them out to the work that I've called them. And, we've had the blessing of sending out John and Gracie Prescott to the Middle East. We sent out one of Puck's disciples to Istanbul, the Tifos. And now we have sent out Puck and Kelly, the brains of the operation, Steve.
And the looks as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Man, I was, Puck and I picked up running during COVID, and we're on like a pretty decent run. And he one day just says to me, hey man, I need to bring you into something. I'm like, what? He's like, because I thought when Rick and Jenny came out here, they said, hey, we're probably going to be going in a couple of years. But with Puck, I thought we'd be here a while. And he just said, we're praying about going overseas. And I was just like, I thought he was kidding. And so I was like, well, the missionary in me is excited, but I got to tell you, man, I cannot imagine, not just as a friend, but just strategically what this is going to be like without you. You're irreplaceable. And just with his skill set, he's the guy holding the map out in front. But they prayed and fasted and sought counsel. And after about a month of that, on a run again, he tells me we're officially called. And I just shoved him. It's like,
is that when he fell under the bus and ended up in?
It is. Yeah. He's got a limp now.
Yeah.
No. And I just said, Puck, I'm excited to be excited about this. And that night I was just wrestling with the Lord on it. And it was like, well, first of all, if this is God's will, who the heck are you to stop him? Like, you really want to do that? Like I'm trusting in my plan and not God's plan. And then the Lord just filled my heart with joy. And it was just humbling to think like, wow, we get to be a church that sends our best to one of the least reached parts in the world. And I've had joy ever since. It's funny. Rick almost gives me a hard time. Like, aren't you sad? I'm like, no, I'm really joyful. And it's from the Lord. And so, and we've heard too from Jeff, like when you send your best, God brings you 10 more. So I'm counting on 10 more Pucks.
Well,
and then a month later,
Jordan,
well, that's it. See, that's why I brought him on here today. Well, that's why he allowed me to be on here today with him. And then a month later, and I'll let him tell the details of this. But Rick and Jenny got the tap on the shoulder from the Lord, and they're leaving, sometime in the spring to somewhere in Central Asia. And so we're so, if you had seen when they're communicating this to our churches, everyone is so excited.
Yeah.
They're almost jealous. Like I want to go, and so it's personal. I've been a part of I've pastored for 12 years as an associate, and we've sent missionaries out of our church. Nothing like this. Because it's like we're in the trenches together, and we feel the loss. like personally, but also like who's going to replace them. But it's like, it's exciting, like this is what God's called us to do. This is what a Great Commission church, this is what a healthy church should do. And so to get to do that, and then to see the ripple among the other churches, it has been super significant. And so God's raising up other leaders. These local folks are leading the charge. It's very exciting. And the same thing, like we've been running with the Utah folks, Matt and Tyler, and they just sent Matt to New York City to join the Kilbys. And so I've been able to last month to start training with Tyler and Evan from Seattle. And like it was funny, 3 years ago when we moved out here, we're like, we're going to go for the Western US. And after like a month, we realized like, man, it's going to take this to be right here. We didn't travel much. And now that we're seeing some momentum, we're able to begin to start traveling to some of these cities and do training, do 12-month rollouts in Phoenix and Vegas and Boise and Seattle, and just see the work really multiply in Utah. One of the things related to mobilization, Steve, is this is not a mobilization strategy. And I've heard this from Jeff Sundell, that just the distinction is this is a movement strategy. And we're seeing it with our own eyes. And out of movement, we see healthy mobilization to the gaps. These guys are family, so I'm not going to pretend like it. I mean, I said my heart's filled with joy, and it is. I'm not going to pretend like it's not difficult. But we've seen God raise up local leaders who are doing as good or better. God's going to provide. That was the thing that, like, as I was wrestling with Puck leaving, and the Lord's like, do you not trust me? The original vision we were laboring towards here locally was 500 churches. And I think we're well on our way to that. Now as we're seeing second and third generation churches. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but we've got a church in almost every county that we were engaging. And we've actually got multiplication in almost every county that we were looking at. And now we're beginning to, working with Kyle and with Will Smith. I think where this is going now, Steve, is we've done path of least resistance. Now we've got to start to look at some of the hard places here, some of the tougher people groups to reach here, and begin to intentionally pray for and engage those people and places.